Hello, and welcome. Happy Saturday, y'all. It's your girl Lorna here. Welcome to the Success Code Fireside Chats. I am super excited to be here. Last week we talked about being grateful for just the air that we breathe, right? And today, believe me, let me tell you, I am so grateful to be above the ground. I hope that you are too, because that in itself is success, right? In my world. And I hope you take that on. I am excited to be here because this week was a challenge. And I got to walk myself through a couple of spaces to get to today, to be here with you guys. So whether you're going to be on here listening live or you're going to be watching on the replay, I'm just going to encourage you that no matter what's happening in your space, it looks horrible, it looks terrible, but I'm going to say to you, take the case that it is all happening for you. And if you just be patient, if you just be resilient, on the other side of it is going to be something so amazing that you're going to be like, oh my God, I didn't even have this in my mind. So with that said, I'm excited for my guest today because when I first met her and read about who she is, I was like, oh my God, this lady is like no joke. Okay, so I want to introduce you to my guest, Diane Armitage, today. Diane was, I'm going to call her, she was Bob Proctor's right hand. I'm going to do it like that. Because it means, was he a lefty though? Wasn't he a lefty? I thought he was a lefty.
He was right-handed.
So my my naming of you is correct. You were his right hand, literally, right? So I'm not going to say more about that. I'm going to let Diane go ahead and tell you who she is briefly. And then we're going to jump in and have an amazing conversation today. Here's the thing I want you to do, because this woman spits fire, okay? And I want you also to make sure that you subscribe to her podcast. It's called The Catalyst Code. But she's going to drop a lot of hot stuff today. So make sure you have pen and paper to write quick. Okay. All right. Diane, go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay. Well, I think you did a great job of introducing me to your audience. Thank you very much. I mean, I call myself a success alchemist because, we're all working with energy. We're energetic beings working with energy and interacting with energy. And in physics, a catalyst is something that just sort of randomly comes along, spontaneously comes along and speeds a process up. And so I am a catalyst to help my clients make quantum leaps in their experience, the experience that they choose for themselves. And I have been helping CEOs and entrepreneurs and creatives for 30 years. And for 27 years, I was Bob Proctor's writing partner, and his mindset apprentice, his little Padawan to the Jedi Master. And it was quite a daily and weekly and monthly and yearly experience being trained up by that amazing, amazing spirit.
I can well imagine.
Mm-hmm.
I can't, I mean, like, to have him, to have access to his beingness, his brain, that must have been super, super cool. Super cool.
It was super, super cool. Well, there were moments when it was very tense because his brain would get stern with me sometimes. He'd be like, die. But, it was, we argue for our limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
We argue for our limiting beliefs. Mm-hmm. And he would always just step right in and go, excuse me, that sounded like a limiting belief. How about we change that up right now? So It was really quite the experience. I mean, we were dear, dear friends. He was a father figure to me. He was just the most amazing gift in my life.
Yeah. And to have somebody like that to call you on your crap, like just right out, like he was unapologetic. It sounds like to me, just from how you're saying it. It sounds like he was unapologetic in calling you forward, right? So that's such a
Yeah.
gift. Such a
Yeah.
gift. Yeah.
Yes, it did. Well, but I would say that he had a heart. He had the biggest heart in the world, and there were times when I was really hurting and when really wounded, and he knew how to handle that.
Mm.
So he wasn't like, "Buck up, Buttercup." Many times he was like that, but when I was really, really down, I actually wrote about this once and did a video on it about the day he had to pull me out from under the bed, and it was just so wonderful.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Oh, just honoring his memory in your presence. This is so amazing. All right, so let's jump in and
Okay.
shift gears a little bit. And I want to ask you the question that I typically ask my guests when they come on, as we get into these conversations. I like to ask, what is your definition of success? Because I find that everybody has a different definition of success. And one of the things that we want to do here on the Success Code Fireside Chats is to have everybody understand the diversity of thought that comes into this space, number one.
Mhm.
And everybody gets to choose whatever they want to choose to define their success, right? And if they can hear somebody else's perspective, it can probably shift maybe the already knowing that they have of what success is. And so what is your definition of success?
Well, that's interesting. I don't know that I've ever really clearly defined it to somebody before, but I would say that, it is a conscious partnership with your spirit, understanding that spirit, which is housed within you, which is all that you are, is for expression and expansion. And success is being everything that you wish for yourself to be. I mean, I remember Abraham Maslow. He said, if you plan on being anything less than you are capable of being, you will probably be unhappy all the days of your life. And isn't that the truth? I mean, if you want to be, I mean, if you agree to settle for less than you are capable of being, and then you will not have that bliss in your life. You will not feel that success feeling in your life. Success in your life is understanding that you're always moving into expansion and expression, and it never stops.
Yeah. So I'm assuming that's how you hold it for yourself, right? Uh is there one marker that you're using for yourself that is like, how do I phrase this question? What is one thing that when you see it or when you analyze it for yourself, it's your tracker, your success tracker?
Mhm.
Even in the realm of your distinction just now, is there some benchmark, some markers, some things that you're on track when you see these things happening for yourself?
Well, I think that you just said it perfectly. You're on track when you begin to see these things happening for yourself.
Okay.
And the key is to understand that initially you're not going to see any evidence of anything. Price Pritchett said, the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence, right? And so when you begin to start working on a goal or a big dream that you have for yourself, one of the biggest things people do is that they quit too soon. They plant the seed and then they go dig up the seed to see if it's still there. If it's still like doing anything.
Oh my gosh, Diane, that's so funny. I told that to one of my clients and they looked at me like I had 10 heads. They're like, you just planted the seed and you want it to sprout in 24 hours. I don't know.
Right. But understand that all of the elements are coming together for that particular seed, and that you can be doing things in your way, your energetic way, to help that seed also flourish, but to understand that the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. It is understanding that it's all happening. It's already there. I mean, I always tell my clients, that thing that you really have clarity on, that you really want, you've already created it. What you have to do now is get to the vibratory level of where it exists, because your limiting beliefs tend to keep you from seeing that it's already there. It's already waiting for you. Abraham Hicks says it's waiting in your escrow. It's in your escrow account. It's already there. It's a matter of you understanding and believing that it's already there and seeing yourself in that space of already enjoying it. And that's the thing that is the key for people to really achieve and keep moving forward is
Diane,
that.
like I
Yes.
said,
Then I'm moving fast. I'm
come
sorry.
on here and drop some stuff on here and be like, you said so much just now.
I'm
Um,
sorry.
and I and I can't even.
We'll back up.
I was gonna start writing, and I'm like, you know what? Let me just leave it. Let me just leave it. Leave it. Let me just let whatever comes up. So here, you said a couple of things that I want you to expand on, if you could. Um, you said it's our job to get to be energetically there in order to,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Say more about that, because in my mind, that is not necessarily a doing from
Mhm.
the perspective of how we're used to doing. So what does that mean really? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No,
I want you, I want,
there is okay. There is a great alliteration by Ernest Holmes, and I will just paraphrase it because I used to have it memorized, but I will paraphrase it. So he says, imagine that you are here and your goal is over there. The thing that you want in your life is over there, and you look at it over there and you say, that is a long way to go. That is so far to go, and you feel like you've got to like climb over these mountains and ford the streams and tear down the walls and try to find your way over to this thing that is over there. And he said that what you must understand is that the barriers and the barricades and the journey and the difficulty is could all go away when you understand that this is just a thing of thought. And when you understand that your thought and your consciousness and your feeling tone is in charge of all of this, it goes like this, right?
last time.
Because,
Yes.
yeah. And so we're the ones who assign the difficulty and the suffering and the struggle. And it's because we've been built up along the way with these thinking patterns in our mind from other people who've told us it's hard, it's a struggle. Anytime you want something, you've got to sacrifice, you've got to struggle, it's going to be difficult, you've got to be completely unbalanced, you can't have friends, you can't have family, you've got to be snippy to people. you know, all these things that we have in our minds about I'm achieving this goal, I'm achieving this goal, I'm achieving this goal. You know, instead of understanding that that spirit and universe and every cooperative force around us wants us to have whatever we want, and it thinks it's pretty easy for us to get. And so when we decide and move in that space of expectation, assumptive success, then it all starts getting easier for us, you know. And one of the things that I keep telling my clients is, you know, the key is to think from the end result, and not just think from the end result, but live in that space of the end result and feel in that space of the end result.
All right.
Be
So
in that space.
there you go again. Think from the end result. How does one think from it? I mean, you just talked about thought, right? You're like, our thoughts create whatever we experience, is what I heard you say, right? So you're saying think from the end result. What does that mean, really? Because we gotta assume that people who are hearing us right now have no
Mhm.
clue. We're opening up some spaces, and I'm inviting y'all to just open up your mind to these things, because um
Well, I'll
it's
tell you,
yeah.
I'll tell you, the thing is that we have imagination, and imagination is key. And anytime you grab an idea, Lorna, anytime you grab a new idea and you're like, whoa, that's a great idea.
Uh-huh.
Wow, you know, as soon as you grab that idea, there's nothing going on in your reasoning mind that's stepping in the way. Right now, you've got this beautiful light bulb idea. You have this dream that suddenly landed on you, and all of a sudden, you have this moment of seeing you experiencing the success of it.
Mm-hmm.
And you think, oh my gosh, I could be a New York Times bestseller. I could be I could actually start my own company. I could actually move to my favorite country if I wanted to. And as soon as you think that, you're seeing yourself in that place, right?
Yep.
That's what the gift of your imagination is. But what we tend to do is instead of staying in that space and letting our imagination really spool in that beautiful space to live that life of everything in that end result, we take it all the way down to our reasoning mind and say, how are we supposed to do this? How am I supposed to do this? Why would it be me that should be doing this? Aren't there a million other people who could do this better than me? I don't even have the skills. I don't have the college degree. I don't have the money. I don't have all of this stuff. And so as soon as you take it down to your reasoning mind is like, forget it. Just forget it. Or, okay, we can try, but we're going to have to sacrifice a lot and it's going to be really hard. You see what I mean? But if you stay in the imaginative space, your imagination is the key. It is.
So how do you stay in the imagination? How do you stay in the imagination and be in? I know what you're going to answer, but I'm going to ask a question. How do you stay in imagination and still be in action?
Because it's inspired action. I mean, think about it.
Say that.
See, you already know. You're so smart, Lord. I mean, you are like on the vibe. So the thing is that you don't have to think about.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but what does inspired action actually mean?
Inspired action means, okay, if I stop thinking about the how, if I stop thinking about this stuff, what could I do? What could I do? What could I do to move this forward a little bit? And I can give you a couple examples. But let me give you one great example that Mark Victor Hansen used to teach. And I think he actually carried it forward with Robert Allen. I used to do a lot of work with Mark Victor Hansen. And he said, actually, it may have been Jay Abraham. But at any rate, these are all wonderful, wonderful people that I've worked with.
Jay Abraham is amazing.
You only need one of three things to move an idea forward. The idea, the money, and the tools, the resources, right? You only need one of the three. You can find somebody with the other two, right? And so instead of saying, okay, well, I don't have the money. Well, I don't have the team. Well, I don't have the technology to even figure that out. Here I came up with this app idea. I had a client who came to me with an app idea, a really good app idea. And he was like, I'm just kind of like this country bumpkin living in Georgia. I don't even know how I got this idea, but it landed on me and it sounds like a really great idea. And I said, it is a really great idea. And he's like, yeah, but I don't really have the money and I don't really have the technology. Well, then you go find the people who do.
Yeah. I don't think that's an option for most people because so I know I'm asking a lot of questions and this is a conversation still, even though I'm asking questions, right? But what do you think is the stop for most entrepreneurs who come into the space of ideas that they know can make a difference for people, but they don't know how to ask for what they need? I don't know. What do you think is the thing that stops them from asking? Luckily, your client gave you at least the sense of that he had the idea, and you were able to grab it and support him with his mindset around finding other people and asking for the support. What do you think is that stops most entrepreneurs from asking as opposed to grinding it out and figuring it out on their own?
I think that you actually just landed on it. They have a reluctance to ask because they don't want to look like they don't know.
Oh, okay. They're looking good. Yes, got it.
They don't want to look like they don't have the resources.
Yeah.
And so they're like, okay, well, I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. But like for instance, let me give you a quick example. This is just a random example. This is something that Bob challenged me to do. It was very hard. He said, I had decided that I wanted to live in Laguna Beach. I came to Laguna Beach in 1995 and I wrote in my journal on New Year's Day, 1995, I am going to be living in Laguna Beach. And then I took that idea, that little goal and that little journal, and I put it on the shelf, and I never really thought about it again. And 5 years later, I was down in Carlsbad, California, which is about 45 minutes south of Laguna Beach. And I had been brought there by a company who wanted me to redo their giant website. So they moved me from Denver to Carlsbad. So now, for the first time in my life, I'm within 45 minutes of Laguna Beach. This hasn't even crossed my mind.
Wow.
And so I finished the Carlsbad project early. It was supposed to be a 3-year contract. We got it all figured out and switched up the marketing model and everything. And 8 months later, I'm ready to get back into my entrepreneurial world. The corporate world was like, whoa, I forgot what this was like. I want to get back into my entrepreneurial world. And so, of course, I had continued working with Bob through that time frame. And on the last day when I had packed up my boxes and I was on my way out of the office, I called Bob from my car and I said, I'm on my way back to my house. I'm free. I'm going to be on more time to spend with you. And he was like, that's great. He says, are you going to go back to Denver? And I said, no, I don't feel like going back to Denver. And he goes, well, where do you want to live? And I was like, anywhere in the world. And he said, yeah, where do you want to live? And I said, Laguna Beach, but it's too expensive. And as soon as I said that, I knew that the Bob thing was going to come down, because you never say but, and you never say it's too expensive to Bob. So there's like this silence on the phone, right? And he says, Di, and I'm thinking, he said, you're in your car right now, right? And I said, yeah. And he says, how far is Laguna from you? And I said, oh, it's like 45 minutes away. It's way up the street. It's way far away. And he was like, well, I want you to drive there right now. And I was like, now? And he was like, you just quit your job. You don't have anything to do. Drive up there now. And I was like, okay. And he says, I want you to drive up there now. I want you to find a mailbox and start forwarding your mail to Laguna Beach. And he says, wow. I want you to do it until you get it done. So I drove up to Laguna Beach, and I found one of those UPS box places, mailboxes. I didn't even know anything about Laguna Beach. I just wandered around until I found this place. I took out a mailbox. I started forwarding my mail. And I'm thinking, okay, I've got at least 4 or 6 weeks. It takes that long for the post office to figure out how to do this. Maybe I've got 3 months, because sometimes the post office is really slow about forwarding mail. So I called Bob on the way home and I said, okay, I did it. And he says, okay, what are you going to do next? And I was like, and he was like, he says, go buy boxes and packing tape and start packing your stuff tonight. And he says, and I do not want you to start with the easy stuff. I want you to pack your bathroom. I want you to pack your kitchen, and I want you to pack your office first. And I said, okay. So I went and I started packing. But see, what happens when you start forwarding your mail to a city that's too expensive to live in, but you really want to live in it, and you start getting boxes and start packing, you are starting to form an expectation and an excitement and an assumption of success in your mind. You are starting to feel yourself there. Yeah. You're starting to feel yourself there. That's the end result.
That's the key. Yeah.
That's the key.
Yeah.
And so out of nowhere, no connection to me whatsoever, nothing forwarded, nothing. An email dropped into my email box 4 days later. It was a couple up in Laguna Beach. They had renovated a little cottage. They'd had it on the market. They were taking it off the market for the winter. They needed a renter for 6 months. I was living in Laguna Beach in 10 days.
Wow.
See, the universe and the energetic universe, we are energetic beings. As soon as we put an energetic thought into motion, it is grabbed by the energetic universe. It is not woo-woo, it is physics.
Yeah.
So you better want that.
Yeah.
You better want it. But if you want it, there is no sense of time in the energetic physics of this universe.
Yeah.
You can say, well, it's going to take 4 to 6 weeks. Well, it's going to take 5 years. It's going to take 10 years. Okay. If you want to assign that to it, that's how long it will take. But if you say, okay, I'm going to start getting ready now.
So walk us through. I love that story, Diana. Thanks for sharing that, because that is so powerful. Girl, you were in Laguna Beach in 10 days. That's like, that means I could get to Costa Rica in two. Okay.
Oh,
So
well, you know what to do now. And you know I'm not going to leave you
right?
alone.
What was, thank you for sharing the steps, because that was
Mhm.
pretty succinct. And as you were going through that process, I'm sure there was one of the things that we talked about earlier when you started was belief, right? Where did belief kick in the process to get you to the feeling? Because I want to give people it's a different formula, right? This is not the formula that is out there in the world. This is a formula. I'm
This is
just
the
making
Jedi
sure
Master formula.
yeah, because what you did in steps. In my mind, that's a
Mhm.
system and that's a formula, right?
Mhm.
So Bob
Yeah.
said, what do you want? You said, I want to live in Laguna Beach. Then he said, go get a mailbox. Then he said, go pack, right? So where did belief, because before that we said belief is part of the part of the process for you to manifest whatever you want. And so where did belief kick in for you?
Well, I think where it happened was um, taking a dramatic and unexpected action.
So
Because
you were doing the
because
action.
I have a client who has been wanting to move to Laguna Beach for 20 years. And
Uh-huh.
she gets closer and she gets closer and she gets closer, but she doesn't move into Laguna Beach. She gets closer and she doesn't, but she's not taking that action that says, I'm moving here. I'm moving here, period. I don't know how it's going to come together. I don't know how. I don't know how. I don't know how. All I know is that I see myself in the end result. I'm moving here. I mean, I had another situation I'll tell you very quickly. I decided I had moved to this. Well, everything in my life ends up being sort of this magical, crazy story. But I ended up moving to this condo complex. I live here now on the edge of the ocean. It sits on a rock it's on the edge of the continent. I absolutely love it.
I love
And
that.
when I first moved here, I moved to the first floor and I immediately noticed that there's a big penthouse on the fourth floor by itself. And I'm thinking, I want the penthouse. I want the penthouse. And so I contacted the landlord. She's like, well, I said, do you want to sell it? She's like, absolutely not. My father built this complex. That's my blah, blah, blah. And so she was like, but I'll rent it, but not for 2 years because I have renters in there for 2 years. And I said, I think they're moving soon. And she said, no, they just signed a new contract. They're moving for 2 years. And I was like, okay, I'm going to send you my security deposit. I said, give me your address. I'm sending you my security deposit. And I want to be the person who's there when they tell you that they're done living there. And she's like, okay, you are crazy, lady. But sure, if you want to send me your security deposit. And I said, and you need to deposit it. I don't want you to just hold it. I want you to deposit it. And so then I went and rented a storage unit and started buying furniture and figuring out paint and rugs and paintings for the penthouse. So I was in the mode of already seeing myself in the space of the penthouse. And so I would find all these beautiful pieces of furniture. I'd add it into the storage unit. I would find this, I'd add it into the storage. I'd go to the paint store. I'd figure out which paint I wanted to use for the bedroom, what I wanted to use for the living room, and all that sort of stuff. And then I figured out exactly. I put the paint cans in the storage unit. I was ready to rock and roll. See how what happens is that you're moving forward with the expectation of success.
Yeah.
That is the absolute key.
Yeah.
And, it was probably 5-6 months later. And I called Bob and I said, okay, I have this vision for this penthouse. And I said, I need you to put your Jedi Master vision on it too. And he was like, okay, no problem. I'll do that for you. So it always helps to have somebody who's in spirit. Who says, I'll visualize it for you. And then I would walk up to it with my groceries. I'd walk up with my groceries, walk up to the door, and then walk back down to my first floor apartment, right? So I would be in the steps, taking the steps with my groceries to the front door.
Yeah.
It's the energetic thing. And so 6 months later, she called me. She says, you're not even going to believe this. And I thought, of course I'm going to believe this.
Yeah, yeah. You're reminding me. I have a similar story. When when I bought my two houses, it was the same thing. Um, we used to go. The first one was a new construction, so we used to actually go sit in the complex.
Yes.
And imagine, because back then we didn't have no money, right? We didn't have a lot of money. Buying new construction, you get to have what, I don't know, 20% down and all this drama, right? We didn't have that, and we used to sit in the complex. And I ended up paying down $1,500 on my first house to build my first house.
Wow.
Yes, and we were the fourth family to move into that complex. And then my second house, I wanted to move into the country, and the market was really, really high back then. And I remember we started building one property, and we had a little bit of thing with the builder, and it didn't work out. So we didn't give up. We started looking for other properties, and then we found another piece of land, and the guy had started building it already. And we used to go sit on the front porch as he was finishing it up. We used to sit on the front porch, and I lived in that house for 15 years. So yeah,
I know,
you're right.
that's it, right?
Yeah.
You're putting yourself in the space of having already realized the goal.
Yeah. And the same thing happened with my car. Huh? What?
So what can you do? That's what I call inspired action, because
Yes.
other people are like, well, you should be talking with a banker and trying to figure out how to move this money over here and how to tell you to sell this and this and that. And yes, you may be doing that.
You gotta do that. Yeah.
But you want to be in the emotion of having already succeeded in it, and the feeling tone of that success. The feeling is the secret. Neville Goddard wrote this tiny little amazing book about it, and it is gold. The Feeling is the Secret by Neville Goddard. It is gold.
Yeah. So if y'all are watching, by the way, welcome to all the people who are watching us live and listen in live. I hope y'all are taking notes, because what Diane is dropping here today and what I'm reiterating in my experience is gold. And here's the thing: as you were talking, Diane, I was like, oh, Lorna, you forgot that part. Okay. So thank you for the reminder of some of these things, right? And here's the thing. Here's my take on belief, because belief is such I don't know. I don't want to put that kind of word on it. Belief is a thing that we've been taught by or domesticators, that we got to see it to believe it. And what we're here working on showing you is the exact opposite. If you listen to what Diane is sharing, right? It's the opposite. You got to believe, see it. That's starting with the end in mind. If you've been in my world for a while, we talk about vision all the time, right? So you got to start with the end in mind. That's the vision. That's where you want to be. Now, stuff you can shift it. So let me ask you, Diane, can the vision shift? In your experience with Bob and your years of doing this kind of work, can the vision change in the process?
It depends. I think that, of course, you can choose to change the vision, but why are you changing the vision is the question, right? Because if you're changing the vision because you just don't think you're going to get it, so you're going to step down a little bit and go with this vision instead, then that's what you're going to get.
Right.
You know? But I also think that a lot of times people don't get real clarity on what it is that they want. And so I devised a clarity exercise for my clients that kind of came from something that Bob had me do back in the day. And then I kind of created my own version of it. And, the clarity exercise is so important because you've got to get crystal clear on what you're ordering from the universe, so to speak. And I mean, Esther Hicks, did this great little 2-minute spiel on the drive-through, where you go to the drive-through and you order. The big board has everything on it, And you're like, I would like this. And they say, okay, and what else would you like? I would like fries. Would you like that giant size? No, I think I'm hungry. What else would you like? What else would you like? What else would you like? That's how it works. And you drive to the next window with the expectation that you're going to get what you want. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I did a whole Catalyst Code episode on the drive-through. I expanded on that idea so people could kind of understand that if you don't have clarity, you know, those people who sit in front of you in the car and they can't decide what they want, and you're like, oh, we can't, you know, and you're back there, you know what you want, and you're waiting for these people to figure it out, and they're like having this discussion with the person. You know, well, is that super spicy or is it not so spicy? And you're like, just make a decision.
Just pick something. Right out
Pick
loud.
something, right? And then there are times when you will make an order, right, to the universe, so to speak, and you will put that energetic thought into motion, and then it's not what you really thought you wanted, right? Well, what happens is two things. First, we tend to settle down instead of settling up. And secondly, anytime we set a goal, we are growing into that new space. That's why we set a goal, so that we can grow up into the new space. And
sorry. That's such a good point. Because Diane, that's such a good point, especially in our world of coaching, right? We have coaches who say set a goal, set a goal, set a goal, right? And people are setting goals without all the things that we were talking about right here, right now, right? They don't have clarity, number one. They don't have belief, number two. They're not emotionally, I'm using the word emotion for the word feeling, right? They're not emotionally connected to it. And when they see it's not work, and then they think it's be on the phone 24/7, grind. If you're not doing anything, if you're not grinding, you're not doing anything, right? And what I'm hearing you say is that there's another way to do it, which is have clarity, have the belief, have the feeling, right? And take the inspired action. But inspired action and action, I tell people all the time, Diane, thank you for coming on here and making this clear. Inspired action and action is not the same thing. It's two different things.
That's true. And you know, you can't, it's very difficult to say, I have the belief, I have the belief, I have the belief, I have the belief. That's why you want to put your practice into seeing yourself and feeling yourself in the end result, in that story, right? And so what I was saying was that when you move into a new space of you know, you're not this person anymore. You're not this person anymore. So a lot of times people will be like, well, they get married, and then, you know, 20 years later, they're like, okay, I don't know why I married this person. I have no idea why I married this person. Well, you married that person because 20 years ago, you were at a vibrational space that was equal to that person. And then this person changed this way or this way, you changed this way or this way, and you're not on the same vibrational scale anymore, right? You're not on the same vibrational space. And so a lot of times you get to the goal and you're like, well, this really isn't as great as I thought it was going to be, because you've grown into something even bigger. And now you realize you can have more. You can actually go back through the drive-through and say, you know, I ordered a chicken sandwich, but I didn't think I wanted the fried chicken sandwich. I really wanted the grilled chicken sandwich. And they'd be like, oh, no problem. We can fix that for you, right? So all you have to do is, instead of saying, I never get what I want, I never get what I want, I never get what I want, they screw you at the drive-through, right? Like they do that movie. They screw you at the drive-through. You just go back and you say, let me be clear. Now that I know what I really want, let me be a little more clear with you so that we're all working energetically on the same thing.
Frequency, yeah. That's so good, Diane. Oh my gosh. You know what came to mind as you shared that? Because I was married for almost 40 years, right?
Oh, wow.
Yes. And ignoring the vibrational dissonance, right? And when I now that I hear you say what you just said, I'm like, yeah, that totally makes sense. And how many people are in that space where they're not on the same resonance, and the partners are not willing to adjust the frequency, right? By taking
Mhm.
inspired action towards the same goal again, and they stay like I did for so long, knowing that the person isn't willing to make any adjustments. That's powerful right there. You could do a whole series on that, Diane, because that is, matter of fact, you could do a whole series on that, and bring in all the marriage counselors to teach them how to do it, because they're not telling people this part, right? You got
Mhm.
to look at this is law, right?
It is. It is universal law. And now a lot of people out there, they say, oh, universal law, that's woo-woo world, right? It is not. It is planetary law. It is physics. And when
Oh,
we understand that we are energetic beings, we're not solid. We are energetic beings vibrating at a high rate of vibration. And any thought, any idea, anything we speak sends energy into and interacts with all of the energy around us.
mhm.
This is why I tell people, be careful what you say, be careful what you say, and also be consciously aware of what you say, because when you are saying something out there, you have been thinking it
Mhm.
inside for a long time, and it has still been shifting energy,
Mhm.
because your thought shifts energy. We
Yeah.
are quantum physics in and of ourselves.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I always tell my clients, conscious attention, conscious awareness, conscious attention, conscious awareness. What am I feeling right now?
Mhm. Mhm.
Because your feelings will tell you where your conscious vibration is.
Yeah. Yeah. I could take this conversation into so many directions. Because this is a thing. I think that if we, as human beings, got that conscious, um, we would actually change things. Don't you think
Oh,
so? Like if enough people, I know I say it all the time, but if enough people got to this level of conversation, as you said, this is conversations, these are words going out into the universe, right?
mhm.
And shifting the vibration of the universe as we have these conversations, right? So
Absolutely.
imagine if more of us were in this conversation, we wouldn't be talking about all the things that are going on in the world right now.
Yeah.
It would be a different conversation. All right, so I want to ask you one quick thing, in the realm of uh, success. What do you believe? How does prosperity play into this whole conversation? So let's say all the things that you're talking about, uh, people start thinking the right way. How do you define prosperity, and what you like? How do you intertwine prosperity into what you just shared with us on how to think to get to the goal?
It's all the same.
Okay.
I mean, it's interesting. I remember I did a videotaping with Bob once, and we drove into downtown Toronto together so that we could do this videotaping. And he wanted to interview me on how I had reached certain goals, because I do them sort of in a different way than most people do. And
Uh-huh.
so we did this whole thing, and we're back in his little Mercedes driving, and he drives like a maniac, right? He drives like a maniac. So we're back in his Mercedes, and we're driving back to his place, and I said, this is just so great. I said, all I need to do is just just focus this, or, figure out how to, bring the man into my life. And he almost crashed the car. He was so mad at me. He's like driving the car, and he's looking at me, and he's driving, and he's like, Diane, don't you get it now? It's all the same. It's all the same. You grab the idea from the ether, right? Now, this is me talking. You grab the idea from the ether, you let your imagination bloom, you build your imagination around it, right? And
Yeah.
then you decide, do I really want this? Do I really want this? How clear am I getting on this? Am I getting clarity? You get clarity, you get clarity. You see yourself in that end result. You live your life in that end result. And one of the things he told me that was so great, he said, you know, I remember once I was like, this isn't working. I'm trying to write about the man. And, every day I'm writing about that. I'm so happy and grateful that I brought the man into my life. And he was like, well, what are you writing? And I was like, well, I had this really long thing and then I condensed it because it was so long. And he just laughed and laughed. He was like, okay, so you want a new car and you're writing about the hubcap. He said, what you need to do is every day in your journal, write about a different experience you're having with this wonderful man that you brought into your life. He said, you're living the whole story, right? And so what he's saying there is, if you want to have more money in your life, if you want to bring more prosperity in your life, you have to understand that it's all the same. It works all the same, physics, energetic, all that sort of thing. But you want to see yourself, not just money flowing into my account, money flowing into my account. You want to see yourself living in the end result. What are you doing with that money?
What are you doing with the money? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
money needs a purpose, what I say.
I'm actually teaching a class at the end of June called Money Physics.
Yeah.
It starts on June 26th, and this is what it's about. 6 weeks of me teaching live on how you get past all the money crap and a lot of people are like, well, we teach mindset classes, we teach Money Mojo, we teach all this, how to get yourself past these blockades. Well, people they're not getting past them.
Right.
Because they're not understanding how the system works in the physics world to really put this into place for yourself.
Yeah. Wow. It seems like
Here we go over.
No, we're just about right. Oh my gosh, this has been so good. So good. And I hope people take you up on that. So make sure you give me the link so I could put the link to that under this when we post in on YouTube and in the shorts. Diane, thank you for your enlightenment.
Oh, I love talking about this stuff, as you know.
I know you do, which is why I invited you on, because I knew that this was going to be a great conversation, but this gets to be a bigger conversation. Maybe, I don't know, we'll figure something out, but thank you for your enlightenment. Thank you for your enthusiasm and your generosity to open up the space, open up your vault of wisdom and experience to the audience. And I hope that everybody who is watching on the replay, I know there were a few people with us live, and they had some comments in here. They were really acknowledging you, Diane, about how you manifested that penthouse on the beach. What was funny for me is that you told the lady, they're gonna be telling you they're moving, and then she's like, what do you mean they're gonna be telling me I'm moving? They're moving. I'm like, that's not even, I don't know, that's bold, right? That's
I know. I would have people say, well, did you put rats in their place? And I was like, no, I didn't need to. I got something more powerful than rats.
Your words, right?
That's right.
Yeah, that was so good. But here's the thing, and I don't know, like saying and here's the thing. It's possible for all of us to use the same technique to manifest whatever we want if we just do it in the right order, right? Order is another thing that we didn't discuss today, but you got to do it in the right order. So, Diane, where can people find?
One thing I do. I do teach the Tower of Power, which is about the order.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll have to do another session on the Tower of Power.
I know, right?
My Catalyst Code episode just came out on Friday on the Tower of Power. So it's in my YouTube station and on all the audio podcasts.
Okay. So guys, make sure that you follow Diana Armitage. She's being, and I know there are more people out there, but she's being the female version of Bob Proctor. So y'all got to get with it.
I would love that.
Yeah. So if y'all, how many of us follow Bob Proctor, right? Like millions, maybe trillions, right? So if we tap into the same wisdom that you have, because you are the ripple effect of what he created, right? So, and
well, thank you. That's a very, very big compliment. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And my intention,
He told me, he was like, you need to start coaching. And I was like, I don't think I need to start coaching. I'm going to stay behind the curtain. He was like, Diane, he said, you need to start. And so,
yeah. So now is the ripple effect. As you teach everybody you're going to impact, that's his ripple as well. So that's the game, right? So each one teach one. Is one of my friends has I should introduce you to her too. She has a podcast called Each One Teach One. You have a course coming up in June, but tell people where they can find you so they can get access to that course.
Sure. It's at my website, dianearmitage.com/moneyphysics, all one word.
Awesome.
And I will be doing a webinar as well I think on the 19th, that is preceding that class. But, I haven't taught a live class in over a year and a half. So this is going to be something. It's going to be really fun.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. All right. So here's the thing, y'all. We're just about at time. I want to tell you a couple of things that are coming up in my space as well. Well, first of all, comment. I love the comments that were here with us in StreamYard, but go into YouTube and also comment on YouTube. Post your questions, because this episode, y'all, I should be seeing a plethora of questions coming through on this episode.
Take them on. We'll answer them in another session.
Yeah, so bring them on, right? Let's see your questions, and let's hear who else you want me to bring on. Because listen, I'm here to shift the consciousness of this planet. You know that. This is a Success Code Fireside Chat where conscious leadership meets business and real talk, right? Mostly real talk. Y'all figured that out already. All right. So I have an event that's coming up on June 26th to the 28th in Dallas, Texas. I would love my female entrepreneurs to come join me in the room, and we're going to go deeper. You think this was hot? Let's go. In the room, we're going to go even deeper around how to generate income, impact, and be fulfilled right now. Right now, it's time for you. It's time for you guys to step into your authority and authenticity and stop living behind the mask and really live your life to the fullest. Okay. So join me June 26th to the 28th. The link is going to be below this video in this episode. And you can also go to lornasherland.com, click on events, and get yourself registered. I look forward to seeing you in the room. So Diane, thank you for being here. I appreciate you. You're an amazing guest. And to everyone else, I'll see you all next week. Don't forget, like, subscribe, and share this channel. Thank you all. Have a great
weekend. It was awesome.